Hello YouTube and welcome to J-Transport. I've visited many tourist railroads and railroad museums across the country, and the world for that matter, from Connecticut to Pennsylvania to Colorado and even the UK. But there's one thing all of my experiences have had in common. I nearly always arrive by car. I could do a whole analysis about the specifics of why this is, but it ultimately boils down to three words: car-centric infrastructure. But what's incidental is that car-centric infrastructure is kind of what led to tourist railroads. Firstly, in the sense that the auto allows tourist railroads to prosper in very remote places, but also in the sense that, since everyone is driving, a train ride seems novel and the appeal is higher. For me though, driving, especially long-distance highway driving, stinks. I also hate contributing to climate change. On the other hand, I've literally spent my life riding transit, as in, I've literally ridden the entire New Jersey Transit rail system. I find it incredibly beneficial for my soul. So, assuming I'm doing a leisure trip, and have the time, I will take transit whenever possible. So naturally, I recently wondered, why don't I go to a tourist railroad and get there on transit? For this trip, I wanted to ride a tourist railroad I hadn't done before. However, where I live, in West Jersey suburbia, most public transit, though existent, radiates from the east in New York City. Direct connections to the south and west, notably to Pennsylvania, are close to none. This is especially true on weekends when I was traveling, so to get anywhere, I will by default pass through Newark. This is a map of all the tourist railroads in my region. There are several that I haven't ridden that are under a 90-minute drive from West Jersey. But I'm traveling on transit via Newark, so the question really is, which new tourist train can I get to fastest on transit from Newark? As it happened, the answer was the Catskill Mountain Railroad, located in Kingston, New York, on the Hudson River north of New York City. So it was arranged. But before I begin, note. I knew beforehand that it would be an all-day outing, so I invited some friends. This is something I strongly recommend doing for train trips or any general leisure activity. It does wonders for your mind, social life, and mental health. In fact, it was my grandfather who got me into riding trains at the age of 2, and it was with him that I rode the entire New Jersey Transit rail system over many years. This picture is us at the end of the West Side Avenue spur on the Hudson-Bergen Light Rail, which marked the official completion of riding the entire New Jersey Transit system. It's a very special bond that I'm grateful to have. So without further ado, the trip. April 15th, 2023 began early, with my friend and I waking up at 5:30 a.m. to get to Raritan Station for the first weekend train to Newark at 6:14 a.m. Also, mad props to NJTransit for emailing me this coupon a week before the trip. Thanks to this, my friend's ticket was free. Couldn't have sent it at a better time. After leaving Raritan, our train made our way along the Raritan Valley line to Newark, through the beautiful sunrise of the morning. For those who don't know, all Raritan Valley Line trains end at Newark Penn Station on the weekends, requiring a transfer to the Northeast Corridor or North Jersey Coast Line to get to New York Penn Station. Fortunately, the connection is well implemented, only requiring a down and under from track 5 to 1, with a timed transfer to the New York train. The train into New York Penn was fine, but there was a brief snafu when the conductor came around for tickets and the scanner couldn't read my ticket because my phone was on grayscale. This took a few minutes to correct on account of me being a tech noob. Once we arrived at New York Penn Station, we met up with my other friend who had taken the train in from New Brunswick. I then took the opportunity to take some photos of the newly opened Moynihan train hall. I was also able to nicely grab some breakfast, which was nice since I hadn't had the opportunity because I had left so early. Our next leg was the 8:40 a.m. Amtrak to Poughkeepsie, so our tickets got us into the Amtrak lounge. I love the e-departure boards, but I do agree the seats could be softer. Soon, it was time to board. Incidentally, our train was the Adirondack, which less than 2 weeks prior had been extended to Montreal for the first time since COVID. Ironically, prior to the train's restoration, a day trip to Kingston would have been much harder, given the next Amtrak up the Hudson wasn't for another hour or so. Our train, like all Amtrak trains between New York and Albany, was headed by a P-32 dual-mode Genesis-type diesel locomotive. This means the locomotive can operate off of third rail power while taking trains in and out of Penn Station. Though, because the locomotive can only travel at 40 miles an hour on third rail power, they immediately switched to diesel power after leaving Penn Station. Our train was surprisingly short, containing only 4 cars, 3 coach cars, and a cafe car with no business class. Our train left Penn Station pretty much on time. We quickly breezed through the west side of New York City and soon joined the Metro-North Hudson line at the Spuyten-Duyvil Bridge. Unfortunately, the conductor then told us we hadn't boarded the best car to get off at Poughkeepsie, but she was nice enough to let us stay where we were. Soon after, we passed Yonkers, and to my surprise, there was the Kawasaki plant, where they manufacture the LIRR M9 cars and the new Path PA5 cars. The New York to Poughkeepsie route is one of the most beautiful in the Northeast, with the line running along the Hudson River the entire way, flanked on both sides by tall mountain cliffs. It is also one of the most operationally interesting, with 4 tracks up to Croton-Harmon featuring Metro-North Express MU local trains on the outer tracks, and diesel Metro-North Express and Amtrak intercity trains on the inner tracks. Our train arrived 20 minutes late at Poughkeepsie due to maintenance-related single tracking, but fortunately our next connection wasn't tight. So in the meantime, we took a stroll to the Hudson River. The tall trestle in the background is the walkway over the Hudson, a former railroad bridge repurposed for pedestrians and bikes. There's even an elevator a short walk from the train station, taking you directly to the top of the bridge. Our last leg to Kingston, New York was aboard the Ulster County Area Transit, or UCAT's, KPL bus route. While somewhat infrequent, the service makes up for it by running on a clock-face schedule, providing a time connection to and from Metro-North trains at Poughkeepsie, and best of all, is fare-free. Honestly though, I was just glad that our bus arrived on time. The bus ride was surprisingly scenic, if a bit loud, crossing the Hudson River, pretty small towns and farmland,
oh look, there it is, Sojourner Truth,
and a memorial to Sojourner Truth, who was born in the area. My life goal is to live car-free, but maybe that doesn't mean living along a rail line. Maybe a bus line like this will do. Conveniently, we were able to get off the bus at Kingston Plaza, right at the Catskill Mountain Railroad station. But we had about an hour before the train, so we decided to walk to a candy shop in downtown Kingston. Downtown Kingston is very nice, full of narrow streets, sidewalks, trees, lots of shops, and this rainbow pedestrian crossing. After that, it was train time. I didn't film much of the actual ride because I wanted to focus on relaxing, not filming. But suffice to say, great open cars, beautiful route, awesome train crews, definitely recommend going. After the train, I had scheduled a Lyft, my first time, in advance for a first-mile connection to Rhinecliff Amtrak train station across the Hudson from Kingston. Unfortunately, our original driver ditched us, but I had allotted extra time in case something went wrong. And the driver we got in the end was very nice and chatty, but he also told us that sometimes getting a rideshare in this area can take up to an hour. Noted for future. But ultimately, it wouldn't have mattered because our train, the Ethan Allen Express coming from Vermont, was over an hour late. I later found out from the train crew that the cause was, big shock, freight train interference. So much for CP having an A-host railroad grade. But as Not Just Bike said, being delayed waiting for a train is far better than being delayed in traffic. Rhinecliff, New York has spectacular views of the Hudson River, and there was even a little park and dock right next to the train station. For me, the best thing in life is time to sit down and be present in the midst of nature. Even better, we bumped into some local young people who had also come to relax the dock. We had a great conversation, and the time flew. As the time drew near for our train, the clouds started moving in. We only made it to the station just in time before the heavens opened up. Another great bonus of the day was seeing the Lakeshore Limited train from Chicago. Because our Amtrak train was late, we ended up getting back to Raritan 2 hours later than we planned. But I didn't care. In my life, the most valuable days are those without commitments. So when life happens, you enjoy it. And this day, I definitely enjoyed it. Shout out to City Nerd, Alan Fisher, Not Just Bikes, and NJTransit for inspiring this channel. You guys rock. Also, special thanks to my friends for a great trip, and my grandfather and parents for a lifetime of great train rides.